The gray sky over the academy reflected the hollow emptiness in Kanagi Minato's heart. For 3 long years he had been mocked as the boy who failed to awaken any meaningful power. Hizaki, the academy's golden boy, stepped forward with a cruel sneer playing on his lips. The announcement for the special field trip to a rank C sanctuary felt more like a death sentence to Kanagi. As the students entered the dimensional crack, the air turned thick with the scent of ancient decay. Suddenly the stone walls vibrated with a low guttural growl that shook their very bones. The rank C dungeon shifted violently, revealing a hidden chamber containing a rank S horror. Seizing the chaos, Hizaki shoved Kanagi directly into the path of the oncoming beast. Kanagi tumbled into the darkness, his scream swallowed by the roar of the monster. He landed on a pile of ancient bones, his ribs cracking under the sheer force of the impact. Blood pooled around him as he watched his classmates flee the chamber far above. In the center of the pit, a strange obsidian crest began to pulse with a rhythmic ghostly light. Hundreds of ethereal figures began to manifest from the shadows of the cave walls. They were the 106 legendary founders, waiting for a vessel worthy of their combined legacy. "Do you desire the power to change your fate?" a booming voice echoed within his mind. With his last breath, Kanagi reached out and grasped the floating crest of nothingness. An agonizing surge of energy tore through his veins as his mana circuits were forcibly rewritten. His dark hair began to turn a brilliant snowy white as the souls merged with his own. The rank S monster lunged into the pit, its claws ready to shred the boy to pieces. Kanagi opened his eyes, now glowing with the cold light of 1,000 suns. He raised a single finger, stopping the monster's colossal descent with an invisible wall of force. With a flick of his wrist, the legendary spirits materialized as phantom blades around him. The blades streaked forward, carving through the monster's armored hide like a hot knife through butter. In a single fluid motion, Kanagi dashed through the air, leaving a trail of white stardust behind. He struck the beast's core, causing it to shatter into a million glowing fragments. Silence returned to the dungeon as the massive corpse dissolved into black smoke. Kanagi looked at his hands, feeling the overwhelming weight of 106 lives pulsing in his blood. High above, Hizaki stood at the edge of the crack, panting with a mixture of fear and excitement. He expected to find a corpse, but instead saw a god rising from the depths. "You shouldn't have done that, Hizaki," Kanagi whispered, his voice echoing like thunder. Hizaki stumbled backward, his fire mana flickering out in the presence of Kanagi's void. The news of the useless boy's awakening spread through the academy like a wildfire. Within hours, high-ranking hunters and government officials arrived at the sanctuary gates. Among them was the world's strongest hunter, a woman whose mere presence commanded the wind. She watched Kanagi walk out of the portal, noting the strange crest on the back of his hand. Kanagi ignored the cameras and the crowds, his mind focused on the prophecies he had glimpsed. He saw visions of a world torn apart by 12 shadows, the apostles of the apocalypse. He knew that his awakening was not a gift but a desperate preparation for the end of times. The 106 founders began to whisper instructions, teaching him the first of many forgotten techniques. But as he channeled the power, a massive dimensional crack opened directly above the academy. A horn blasted from the heavens, signaling that the first apostle had already arrived to claim the world. As the first monstrous foot stepped out of the rift, Kanagi realized he was far from ready for what was coming next. The colossal monster loomed over the city as its shadow swallowed the entire academy district. Kanagi gripped his weapon tightly while feeling the residual warmth of the 106 souls within him. Suddenly, a violent gust of emerald wind tore through the air and shredded the monster's front leg. From the sky descended a woman wrapped in a cloak of pure atmospheric pressure. This was Midori, the world's top-ranked hunter and the undisputed master of the wind. She looked at Kanagi with piercing eyes that seemed to weigh the very value of his existence. Without saying a word, she flicked her wrist and sent a shockwave that cleared the remaining smoke. Midori asked how a mere failure could possess the aura of 100 legends. Kanagi stood his ground even as the sheer pressure of her presence threatened to crush his knees. Midori declared that she would test his new power through a formal duel. News of the confrontation spread quickly through the remaining academy students and staff. They couldn't believe the useless Kanagi was facing the pinnacle of human strength. Midori vanished in a blur of speed and reappeared instantly behind Kanagi's back. Instinctively, Kanagi activated the Soul Echo ability to predict her trajectory. He parried her strike with a fraction of a second to spare, creating a massive spark. A small smile played on Midori's lips as she realized he wasn't just lucky. Kanagi funneled the energy of the crest of nothingness into his right arm. He unleashed a counterburst that forced the world's strongest hunter to jump back. Midori landed gracefully and sheathed her weapon, ending the short trial. She informed Kanagi that he was now a candidate for the anti-prophecy unit. She explained that the 12 apostles of the apocalypse were already descending upon their world. These beings were not just monsters but heralds of a total universal reset. Kanagi accepted the invitation, knowing his life at the academy was officially over. Within hours, he was transported to a secret underground facility hidden beneath the mountains. The facility hummed with high-frequency mana generators and advanced technology. He was introduced to his new team, a group of elite hunters who specialized in apocalypse-level threats. A bulky man with a giant hammer looked at Kanagi and laughed at his small stature. Kanagi ignored the taunt and focused on the mission briefing displayed on the main screen. A red alert suddenly blared through the speakers, shaking the entire base. An operator shouted that a dimensional rift had opened in the middle of a populated city center. Midori ordered the squad to deploy immediately for their first real test. Kanagi strapped on his gear, feeling the souls of the 106 founders vibrating in anticipation. They boarded the dropship as the floor began to retract to reveal the launch tube. The ship shot out of the mountain like a bullet, heading toward the crisis zone. Below them, the city was already being overtaken by strange crystalline structures. Midori noted that this was the work of the cluster, an interdimensional plague. Kanagi jumped from the ship before it even landed, his body wreathed in dark energy. He slammed into the ground, creating a crater that shattered the nearest crystal towers. Small insect-like creatures began to swarm from the cracks in the crystals. With a single swing of his blade, Kanagi obliterated the first wave of attackers. He realized his power was growing more stable with every life he took. But the air grew cold as a much larger presence stepped through the main rift. It was one of the 12 apostles, a being that defied the laws of physics. The rest of the squad arrived and immediately formed a defensive perimeter. Midori warned everyone that this specific apostle could manipulate the gravity of the area. Suddenly, Kanagi felt his body become 10 times heavier, pinning him to the asphalt. He watched as the apostle raised its hand to deliver a crushing blow. At the last second, a mysterious voice whispered a new technique into Kanagi's mind. The space around Kanagi began to glitch and tear as if the world itself was breaking. As the apostle's claw struck, Kanagi simply vanished, leaving only a dark void where he once stood. Kanagi reappeared behind the apostle with a flicker of black lightning as the void collapsed around his previous position. With a single swift motion, he channeled the essence of the 10th founder to sever the monster's connection to the rift. Midori landed beside him, her wind blades spinning with enough force to level the surrounding ruins. She looked at Kanagi and nodded, signaling that the interdimensional gate to Owlet was finally stable enough for entry. The anti-prophecy unit stepped into the shimmering blue abyss, leaving their home world behind for the final mission. They emerged onto the surface of Owlet, a dying planet where the sky was a bruised shade of violet and the ground was made of obsidian glass. Hordes of clusters, twisted biological machines of war, screeched as they detected the presence of the human invaders. Kanagi raised his hand, and the spectral silhouettes of the 106 founders materialized in the air like an army of ghosts. He ordered the charge, his voice carrying the weight of 100 lifetimes as he lunged into the front lines. With every swing of his blade, dozens of clusters were reduced to fine black ash by the power of nothingness. Suddenly, the ground trembled as a massive spire of dark energy erupted from the center of the cluster hive. From the depths of the spire, Yell, the first-rank husk, descended with wings that blotted out the moons. The weaker members of the squad fell to their knees, paralyzed by the sheer pressure of Yell's murderous intent. Kanagi stepped forward, his own aura expanding to shield his allies from the crushing weight of the enemy's presence. Yell spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding metal, mocking the humans for daring to enter the sanctuary of the clusters. Kanagi didn't waste words, launching himself toward the monster with the speed of a falling star. Their first collision created a shockwave that shattered every glass tower within a 5-mile radius. Yell countered by summoning thousands of dark needles, raining them down upon Kannagi in an inescapable web of death. Kannagi activated the 50-second Founder's technique, creating a spatial barrier that swallowed the needles into the void. However, Yell moved faster, appearing behind Kannagi and slamming him into the ground with a force that created a massive crater. Kannagi coughed up blood but forced himself to stand, his hair turning completely white as his power peaked. He whispered the names of all 106 founders, their spirits merging into his body to form a singular divine armor. The final crest appeared on his forehead, glowing with a light that surpassed the suns of this alien world. He looked at Yell with eyes that saw the beginning and end of all things, ready to deliver the final strike. Kannagi raised his sword, which had transformed into a blade of pure crystalline energy that hummed with the frequency of the universe. Yell roared in frustration, gathering all the dark energy of the planet into a single world-ending blast of corruption. Kannagi swung his blade downward, releasing a wave of nothingness that erased the monster's attack before it could even fire. The wave continued forward, passing through Yell's body and dismantling the creature's existence at a molecular level. As Yell vanished, the dark spire crumbled, and the oppressive atmosphere over planet Aulet finally began to lift. Across the planet, the remaining clusters lost their spark and deactivated, falling like lifeless statues. Kannagi fell to one knee, the white hair returning to its original color as the spirits of the founders gave him their final farewell. Midori and the rest of the squad ran toward him, their cheers echoing across the now silent alien landscape. They looked up to see the dimensional rifts closing one by one, sealing the path between their worlds forever. With the last of his strength, Kannagi activated the return beacon, teleporting the survivors back to Earth. Back on Earth, they were greeted not by monsters but by a world that was finally at peace. Families were reunited, and the era of the Great Awakening was officially declared over. Kannagi stood at the academy where he was once called a failure, looking at a statue built in honor of the 106 founders. Midori joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder as they watched the next generation of students train in a safe world. He felt the faint warmth of the crest on his hand, a reminder that he would always be the protector of this reality. Kannagi Minato, the once useless boy, had become the legend that saved the universe, leaving a legacy that would never be forgotten.